Okay, so here we go with part 3 of this these videos on making trees. What I want to do first of all in this video is the way that I'm going to bake this texture is a little bit weird, and the reason for that, well, I just want to show you the reason for that now. What I've done is I've just set this up quickly in the way that we would normally bake a texture. So I've put a plane underneath this, and then I've put a projection modifier on. I've added these 3 branch objects to the reference geometry, and I've pushed the cage up outside of those, so the rays are going to project down and catch these. That's fine, and that should work okay. But what happens is if I render this, so it doesn't matter what map I render, but the result that I get will be this. And because all of our leaves are on little alpha mapped planes, unfortunately it won't bake out those, it won't sort of cut those out. Instead it'll just render out the whole plane. As far as I know, there is no way around this whatsoever. You know, I don't think there's any setting in here or anything like that you can change to stop that from happening. If anyone does know a way around that, then please do let me know, and you could also put that on the internet somewhere, because I know a lot of people would love to have a solution to this problem. So anyway, we can't do that, so I'm just going to delete that whole object. Actually no, I'm not. I'm going to leave it there just as a bit of reference. Instead, what I'm going to do, just get rid of these. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to set up a camera, and then basically I'm just going to render. So I'm just going to take a top-down orthographic view, and then I'm just going to go to rendering and render, and just render it out like that. Then I'll show you how to make the normal map as well in a second. We're going to have to set up some lights to make the normal map. We're basically going to have a red light and a green light pointing in different directions, which is pretty much what a normal map does. In fact, it's basically exactly what a normal map does. So let's set up the camera. So to set up camera, what I want to do is just get my view in roughly the correct position, like this. I can also, let's just go to rendering now, render setup, and change our change this to be 2048 by 2048. So we just want to change our output size to be 2048 by 2048, so that if I render that out, we get a nice square like that. Okay, so I could just position the camera, or position my viewport and render it out, but that's going to get messy, so the easiest thing to do is to make a camera. So if I press Control and C, sorry, I need to make sure I'm in perspective mode. If I press Control and C, that'll create a camera from where my viewport was, so I can go back and press P. Sorry, I'm just having issues with my layers. So that's made a camera there, and now we can just press C at any time to go to that camera. So essentially I just want to set this camera up in the correct position. So the first thing that in fact the other thing I want to do is I want this to be an orthographic projection, so I'll just click orthographic projection on this camera, and then I can just move it down until it looks like it's in about the right position. This is just a little target, so I can move that if I need to as well. And let's just go to that go to that camera and let's render that out. Okay, so that looks pretty good. I can probably zoom in a little bit more than that, so I'll just move my camera down slightly. Actually, I wouldn't mind just, because this is upside down, so I'm just going to rotate that. Okay. So just rotate that 180 degrees. Then go to the camera again and render. And I think I can still zoom in a bit more. So let's just cancel that. So I just want to make sure that nothing is poking out of the edges. So it is just a little bit there. So yeah, I could just do with moving the camera up just the tiniest little bit. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with this in the sense that it fits within my render. In fact, I'm just missing a little bit there, so I'll just sort that. Okay, so once you're definitely happy with how your texture sheet's getting baked out, we're good to go. One thing I do want to do is I want to delete that underneath. So when I when I render this out, all of this area here will just be transparent, and I'll automatically have that alpha map. Okay, so what I would like to do now is to get a decent, obviously I want to get a decent diffuse texture, so I'm just going to put a light into the scene, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a skylight in. So I'm just going to go to Create, Light, Standard, Skylight, and I'll just put that in there. I'll just make sure I'm on the right. So I'll just put that in there, and I'm just going to leave it. It doesn't matter where I put this in the world. I'm just going to leave that pointing straight down, and I don't think I'm going to change any of these settings. I'll leave cast shadows turned off as well, just because I just want a nice, simple diffuse texture with no shadows or anything. Just something as a good starting point. So I can go to my camera now, and I can render. Okay, so there's my render, and basically that's my diffuse texture done. There is a slight problem here with around the leaves. There's little white lines around all of them, so we just need to sort that out. Okay, and the reason that that happens is if we go to our material editor, M for material editor. Right, if we come into our material for this leaf, so if you need to, you can just grab a new material slot and use the picker off that, and just then go into the correct material. So it's this leaf material. What's happening is this ambient and diffuse colour is leaking through the edges. I don't know exactly why it does that. It shouldn't do, really. It should just use the diffuse that we've got in here. The easiest way to fix that is quite simply to change the ambient colour from this. So it's this white that we're seeing bleed through. So if I turn that to bright red, we'll see that bleed through. If I just turn the whiteness down to all the way to black, to 0, when I render this out, those little white borders will disappear. So then we'll get our map looking exactly how we would expect it to look. Okay, so just let that render out. And there we go, that's pretty good. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is to create our... well, in fact, one thing that we can do now is we could turn on shadows for this, cast shadows, and we could bake that out as a map as well. That might just give us a bit of a different look, and we can blend that with the diffuse. It's unlikely that I'm going to use that very much, that map, and it's going to take a long time to bake, so I'm just going to leave it for the moment. I can always come back and bake that later. Okay, so this is where this all starts to get a little bit weird. We need to make this normal map, but we can't bake a normal map in the normal way that we would bake it, because of the reason I showed you earlier, where the alpha planes will just show up, we won't get the cut out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of that light, and then I want to set up a lighting, basically I want to set up some distinct lights to kind of simulate what a normal map would do. So I'm going to use free direct lights. So if you go to create, to the lights, make sure you're in standard and find free direct. What I want to do is I can just drop this in anywhere, it doesn't matter where it is, again, because it's directional light. In the settings, I want to make sure that I turn the intensity and colour, I want it to be blue. So just turn blue up to 255 and then red and green down to 0. And what I also want to do is turn on, where are we? So in the next section, directional parameters, turn on overshoot. And that should light that up in blue. Sec. Okay, I don't know why that wasn't kind of working. All I've done is deleted it and put another one in, and this one seems to work okay. Right, so I've got this blue light pointing straight down now, and what I want to do is I want to get another light, and I want to point it from the right hand side, so like that. So it doesn't matter where I put these lights, but just to make things a little bit more obvious with what I'm doing, I'll put this one on the top pointing down, and then I've got this light pointing from the right hand side pointing in, and this one I want to be a sort of a blue light. I want it to be a green light, so let's turn green up full, and I'll change, in fact let's do our red light next, so let's get another copy of this, and this time let's point that from the bottom pointing upwards like that, and this one wants to be a red light, and you should be able to see that we're starting to make something that looks like a normal map now. What I need is another red light now. Let's copy that one, 80 degrees, put that on the top, and this red light is going to be negative, so that should be minus 0.5, the multiplier, so that's a negative red light. This one actually should have a multiplier of 0.5, this one should have a multiplier of 0.5, and then we just need a green light over there, and that's going to be negative 0.5, and that one should be pointing this way. Okay, hopefully that's easy enough to follow. Essentially I've got a positive blue light pointing down with a multiplier of 1. Then I've got a positive green light and a negative green light on either side, and so positive red and a negative red at the top and the bottom. So if I go back to my camera now and I render that, okay, it's a bit weird looking, but this is essentially, this has got all the components of a normal map. So you can see we've got the shape of the sticks coming in. What we can do, we can leave that. In fact, sorry, one thing that we do need to do, of course, is we don't want these materials on here. So let's just come into our material editor. In fact, this is another good place to save your document and then save it with a new name. So let's call it Branch Bakes Normals or something. And then let's just grab everything that's in here and go to our material editor. So material reset. Oh, not rotation. One sec. Okay, sorry, I just had a bit of a brain freeze and couldn't remember how to reset my material editor slots. It's just up there in case in utilities reset, just in case you need to do that. Anyway, let's put that onto there and assign it to the whole selection. And oh, in fact, sorry, let's go back. I don't quite want to do that. What I want to do is I want to let me just get the wireframes off so we can see what we're doing. What I want to do is I want to put set the bark material to something just normal. So that's just a plain material now, and I want to go into the leaves and I want to keep my opacity map in there, but I want to change my diffuse colour. So let's just copy that, and then we can put that into there. That into there as a copy, okay, and then just paste our opacity back in. Change that back to alpha. Sorry, I think I just confused it somehow. That's what we want anyway. So now this probably is looking a little bit more like a normal map. Right, so go to our camera and let's do a render of that. That looks better. Okay, so now we've got a nice normal map. That's it, we can save that image. So let's save it as there, I'm putting it. So let's call that normal base. Save it as a target. Okay. And now we've pretty much got everything that we need from this. What we could do is, well, in fact, let's just go into Photoshop next, or let's go into Marmoset, in fact. So let's make a plane again. So I'm just making it plain, so I've got something to bring into Marmoset to look at. And let's make it 10 by 10. And let's export that. So file export selected. Where am I? So I think it's in here somewhere. So trees, put this obviously wherever you want. I'm just going to stick it in here for the moment. I'll just do say J. Just got that plain. Okay, and I can go into Marmoset now. Okay, and I'll just open my plane. It doesn't matter if you don't have Marmoset or whatever, it's not important. I'm just using this as something to preview what I'm doing in. So you can preview it in Max or whatever. In my viewport it's quite good. You can preview it straight to CryEngine if you want. Anyway, so I've just opened that 2D plane mesh in there. What I'll do is I'll stick these textures on straight away. So I'll get my diffuse base and I will get the in fact, let's leave the normal map off for now and then we can see what it's going to do. So that's my diffuse texture as it is at the moment, and we can, if we have use alpha testing turned on, we can just bring this alpha up a little bit. So we've not padded this or anything like that at the moment, which is why we've got a bit of a background and a bit of bleed around the edges. But there we go, those are our textures, which are looking okay. So let's put the normal map on, just so we can see what that does. So there's the normal map, and we'll have to move our, we've got some lights in there, so I'll just delete those for now. And let's just pick a new preset, so let's go to sunlight. So you can see that our normal map is basically working so that as we move the light around the direction the light's coming from, these leaves are lighting as though they are actually sticking up in different directions. So you can see this leaf here and this one here are quite flat onto the camera, whereas this one's kind of rotated down and away from the camera. And as we move our light source around, you can see that that's lighting in a different way. So the light source is probably coming from underneath now, so these aren't, or coming from this direction, so this isn't getting as much light on it, like that. So you won't be able to get that normal map without baking in some way or another. Let's try another one of these. It's very interesting. That's a good one. Let's try forest cover. Okay, that one's working pretty well. So we've still got a lot of work to do on these textures, but those are the two bakes that we really need to do. So again, I'll stop the video here, and in the next video we will do these textures properly, make a spec map. We need to do some more work on our normal map. We need to do some more work on our diffuse map. So yeah, we'll do all of that in the next video.